Welcome back, and we're doing a bit of a filler episode because I need to do some stuff and keep this stuff rolling. And making excuses, I'm making myself more work before I do the final year video. So we have here what should be a bit of a Napoleonic-ish. Oh, it's 8. It's not. It's more later than that. Slightly later. We have over. Well, roughly, I think we probably lost what it says about. Is it 12,000 soldiers? Roughly from Team 1, which is the British side, Redcoats. And we have 12,000 men currently sitting in the valley on guard. We have a 30,000 force just under of French, and we have a supporting another. Well, it's actually 100,000. I think I've drawn up the numbers. So is it 200? Yeah, 200,000. Then another 100,000 roughly coming to reinforce. So we shall see how we go. And yeah, the aim is to sort of see if the French units, who are very blue, can break through this British section before the reinforcement section comes, but there is a bit of a running gap. Try and fill them down. Because technically these guys have to filter down, but these have, especially here, this is a much wider gap. Here and here, these guys are on guard, so we'll see what guard does for these units. But it's a stupid battle, and it's large scale. Perhaps these units are probably a little bit too far away. I have to wonder. When first engagements, we'll see how far away they are. Camera's very slow, unfortunately. We'll put cinematic on. So, who's going to get first engagement? So, as you see, we have the massive blob of French here. We have what is very much some French go around that way, very distant. Some French here, some French there. The British are my guessing who's going to win. Oh, first volleys are up. We've deployed. The firing line. These units are working up to go snipe down this hill to counter this French unit, who are absolutely volleying up towards the cliffside. And there is a amount of blood flowing from both sides in the extreme. And the spare army is nowhere near. But it does seem to be moving, so I haven't set that up wrong. So the fact is the British section has stayed very much more in line and more in focus. Very much behaving itself. And it's come down off its hill to get more of its guns in line, which potentially might get some early ground victories, as you're seeing the French being front and centre in what? Well, they're not dying rapidly, but they are dying in a decent visual chunk amount. But I mean, the British side isn't much better in places, but it is overall visually, though they are advancing a little bit, so it seems a bit of an improvement. But this side's definitely going to take the worst of it as the larger forces here. We'll double check. We are currently looking at Team 1 about 600-ish kills ahead of Team 2. But Team 2 has got the extra 100,000. The question is, was this too many units in such a short walk where this advantage of the ambush hasn't yet kicked in? Because in theory, the British should have more units at the moment than the French can get there, so it should be relatively even Stevens, if not British advantage, which I'm guessing it is by the looks. I mean, there's quite a few units stuck here. the British got the running first volley. Absolutely being ripped apart on this ledge here. But the entire hill is, well, it's puffing out smoke. But I think the British are playing on this side a very useful game of more firepower, but they're also taking the brunt of the attrition, having such a wild feel of battle, in the sense that many ranks deep are being shot here, while the French are having more smallerish ranks, but also losing a lot from the downhill. But if you're here, you're kind of slightly shielded because of the hill of the mountain. But the French are definitely gaining the advantage now in numbers. And we have the reinforced British coming in now. So, distance haven't made too much of a difference here. It's definitely giving the ability for this to last a bit longer. While the French are slowly getting in, so the question is, can the British hold on and some reinforced attacking forces? Because these guys are on guard, so they'll happy sit here. But the question is, as more people filter through, will there be enough units to counterattack elsewhere? So we're going to check the sides just in case. These guys are filtering in, so it doesn't seem like there's any units that have gone for the flank, which is useful. We have a bit of strict battle. Ooh. But it does appear, for whatever reason, the British units are starting to go over this hill, which means the higher ground. And when we spoke about flanking, I didn't see any units that seem to be doing it. We're having a surprising, well, the middle slog goes on. We're having this skirmish here, which the French seem absolutely outnumbered. Although they seem to be doing pretty well, saying the British can't aim down a hill apparently. But as more British units come, the more French units come. So this side French unit is being slightly pulled away into an ambush, which is interesting. So this might bleed off. I'm kind of happy the British have got here first, because it's kind of repeating the same strategy. Less units, but height advantage on the hill, and less filtering. It seems muskets are struggling to aim down. There's a lot of rounds flying this way. But then these guys are volleying up the hill. But it seems this last section is all being filtered this way, while this section is sink, and these filters into the main battle, which, as the bodies are piling very much higher, it's just showing you the sheer casualty rates. We're looking at 30,000 dead each side, and it's, oh no, it's 1,000 difference, roughly. So the British are 1,000 ahead. That may not be enough, but it's certainly interesting. So by current attrition, the British are going to lose, but it's not going to be a hard lost battle. It's going to be probably a higher kill count for the British, but less units overall. So they are getting an advantage in a defensive position. But that 1,000 lead is actually slimming, as I do feel the battle opens up. So the question is, will the main unit slim down enough to hold? So the question is, which main area is gonna, well, from this is the main area is gonna break first, because the British seems to be staying here. So this entire hillside. You have some units still holding here, so that's interesting. And we have this, which is definitely improved. Proper firing circles now appeared. Slightly concerned what this train's doing, because technically you should not be taking losses through these rocks, but it could be possible. But the French do seem to be struggling, minus all this rock nonsense. So that hasn't really improved, and it's actually got worse for the French, I think. So yeah, I think the main French hope is outlasting this main section, which is kind of the main idea for the beginning. This hillside is still an absolute bloodbath. The neat British pile here. Perhaps because the English bullet, I said English British bullets can go wider. Might be getting some more French headshots here and killing more, while the French shots can shoot a fair while more. Actually hitting less of the British because of the mountains and the horizon. The back here must be quite bad for getting some of the missing shots. But this is quite thin in here now. But some smaller stragglers getting through, still firing. There hasn't been a cross of the bodies yet. There's still a decent distance between the two units. I think these guys might be the point of touching, which it looks like they are. So this is no man's land touching here. Let's quickly move over to the other side. So there's still a couple of units trickling in here. So the only hope is this unit breaks down and attacks this side to relieve that side. Or circles back around afterwards, who knows. But by the looks of it, I'm not happy with these French casualties here. I think the British are losing somehow in the firepower department, so this might be the opposite of what we wanted. But it feels like we're losing. A little bit too equal. We'll go check back to the kill count. 3,000 ahead for the British, 2,000-ish. Oh, I don't know. I mean, the British kills are higher, so it is proving the French losing more numbers per unit. What could this mean for the long game? I don't know. But attrition rate is still 100,000 in play. But honestly, the French units are taking more strains, like I said previously, so they are coming into this a little bit weaker, which would explain the kill advantage, where some of these shells from the French might just go off into the horizon. But it's still very much so far in French hands, to my opinion. It's, like I said, it's tactically, you could argue it would be a British victory in the sense of kills, and strategically if you were meant to thin out an army. Well, I'll say tactically. No, it'd be it's a strategic tactic, I don't know. So if you go for kills alone, the British are probably winning slightly. But strategically, I guess the French would win in the end. But in the same breath, the French have lost more. So if this looks like 4,000 almost, depending on the number and the rate. We'll see who wins the overall, but if the British win with a higher kill count, it's questioning the worth of the battle. But as this main section absolutely just carries on with its unloading of units, we're seeing the blood flow. This secondary front is still holding. The French aren't really pushing. I mean, I did at first worry the British were losing more than the French, but going up that way appears to show the opposite actually. The British are losing heavily, mind you. This was a lot of bodies in a quick period of time. But they seem to be at least gutting the French for what they are in increased numbers, so I'm having a little bit more hope on this front for the British to clear out this. I'm having a feeling we're going to lose the main British line here in time, because all these units are shooting a hill. And I think we're looking at how thin this line is actually getting. But when I look out, this is a sneaky British contingent here, not engaged. The line is getting thin here, and it's coming into this weird, sporadic charge. Roughly 4,000 kills difference. It's good, but the British Armed Forces are crawling down to the 100,000 mark. Still 100,000 spare on the French side. It just may not be. I may have gave the French too much numbers, but typically a double and a bit and the assaulting force is generally going to win-ish, but it can change. It is impressive. That's why more's not happened. Oh, last bit of French pockets are being emptied. Despite how thin these lines have looked for the British for a long time, this is still surprisingly thinnish for the French here. So it just suggests the middle's taking a fair bit of loss. They covered a line, but solid wall here's going. We shall mosey on over. There guys are still on hold to this side. These guys seem pretty chill. And the British are winning because they actually are pushing again. What in God's name is happening? And this might, where the British casualties might start coming in more. They were winning that engagement with the sliver of French. Can they win against this blob? Maybe not yet, because it seems to be aiming a little bit too high. That guy was sitting on the rock. Absolutely got gutted. But this may be a French route here, in theory. But like I said, whatever the reinforcements do, that is the only hope for the British to win this, is to, in theory, have double the guns firing at the same area of French to then cut down them quicker as the blood starts pooling up. The French could drown, in theory, if there's enough of it lying around. The French are pushing here slightly, which is getting a little bit more scary because this is the side where we're having a fair few tumbles. despite deaths. This is dragging out. Like I said, I thought this was actually 10,000. Oh, this is not meant to go on this long. But yes, I think the British are losing just sheer attrition. But they are fighting at a 10,000 lead. No, 10,000. It is a 10,000 lead. No, no. Are they? Oh, these numbers just lie to me. They're in the next bracket, 10,000 killed, so they might actually get there near the end. But this suggests they are winning here, I think. Though this next crest might be the actual death of the event because of the angle change. But there's a lot of units here. But still, the main battle is probably the most important, and it appears to be the middle is broken from casualties, and it has. Now, whatever pincer movement can be made of the advancing middle French units is the only really hope we're going to get, but this side unit is still in this gut assaulting pincer up this side of the line hill here, which has really stifled the left and right, as you can see by the sheer number of reserves they have left, and the fact that even like the last trickles are coming in from the French units, which are these bodies or units. So either shot or fall damage from the French. But these are actual units. And some deaths with this train. Bit odd. There might be some hope we might get some drowning deaths. Not yet, but the French may start taking attrition because of this lake that's forming. It's not particularly in the main unit, like I've had some battles where it's been pretty bad for train deaths of drowning and the nature of blood, but the French units are losing badly. In this area at least. The British are taking losses like no tomorrow. Yeah, this is I think this is going to be the next section that breaks. Is we're going to route units here, but they're not advancing too far really. I think they are being cut down fairly efficiently in the charge. But this pincer has kind of worked, but the French do have a fair amount of units on both flanks, but this flank has took too much of the assault early on. Sheer terrain has meant these guys have pretty much fought from the start at full tilt. Which does explain this bud pool here. And this side's got the best reinforcements. This side's been trickling reinforcements pretty much the entire game. It's only really stopped now, so yeah. I do fear this is the downfall, is these units have been, well, this is a little bit of a sneaky intersection here, but you can see the bodies, this section here just took this up for far too long. That's where this side now is probably getting a good few kills in. But the French units are advancing. We'll just have to see how this trickles on. Let's check on the other amazing pool of blood forming over here. and I think it's, as I feared, this last crest part here is where the British soldiers are going to take the horrendous amount of casualties. You can see here's more French. This last crest is where the rest of the army gets to filter in from. And more units are coming over. This is either a good sign or a bad sign, because this is not going to change for a while. This is just going to be us filtering units in this small gap. The fact these guys have decided, yes, this is the quickest way to the enemy, does suggest ooh, I think the French are caught up on kills. And this is the table, the script flipped. The kill count was been the entire game the British advantage. Now, whatever I was arguing about tactical and strategic, got backwards and got wrong at some point, has flipped to where the 4,000 advantage is now on the French side, which means numbers are playing a factor here again. It's been fairly even Stevens with a British slight advantage with terrain. Now numbers are now, I think this side's kind of attributed to that. This last pocket's holding on. Same for this. Reinforcements are refilling that line. We're not going to see any French drowning in blood today. None are reinforcing that side section. It's all going to be this hill, which has got more reinforcement British units trickling in, but no more than that apparently. These guys are committed to what is basically this Valley of Death. You've got the main valley at the side of Valley of Death. I think this has just been as brutal for both sides, but I think you can start seeing the terrain height difference. I can't tell what the French bodies are actually going, to be fair. But they are here. Yes, as I feared, I think they'll start piling up here a little bit. But I think this is actually in a more advantageous spot for the French for shooting, as I said. Oh god, this is a large section of this force. Reinforcing. The French have conquered the hillside. They're now roping around, creating an even wider front for the British to hold. We're looking at a large, that's like a 5,000 gap advantage to the French. Well, the British firepower superiority from the beginning has well been lost. I think this is just sending more units in to die. The only question is the hill helping us more or them more? And it may be a them situation. More and more units are trickling over to this side. He's just walked up. He's dead. French are losing a few men here. I've got a small task to do, it's put lights on and put a heater on. So we'll mute mic and do that for now. Yep. Mute. I'm back. The mute button's been beeping at me like mad. No, it doesn't do that, so I presume it's acting up slightly. But we are still fighting this tooth and nail. Here. Let's get back up the hill. Over the hill. More units are bleeding off. The main French units rejoined into one big crescent. This is internal spike. Oh no, the British have caught up slightly to 7. No, they haven't really caught up. Now they're losing. The death rate's kind of equalising slightly. It's slowed down, I think. And the count, but the French are still winning. Unfortunately, this is why I want the British to have the advantage of a longer firing line to kind of pincer, which they had at the beginning. They had midway through the game, and then when the middle broke, they had it for a little bit. But the sheer attrition rate, saying it was just under 20,000 for just under 30,000, closer to 30,000 for the French side of it. You can't blame the British for the trying. So it's always 100,000 in play. For not 30,000, 300,000. That does mean, roughly, that despite the extra 100,000 guns, it has been quite equal. Which could argue the British would have won with an equal force against the French. More units are coming in here, staving off this tide. It is quite interesting because I'm saying that's put more better position for the British soldiers on that hill. Slightly. Struggling to figure out where the French bodies are. I think they are there roughly. But reserves are being bled off from here. The problem is the French reserves are, while decent sized, they're not as small as the British are. The question is, who's going to lose out first? But it is quite equal here, really. So whatever this means. But I do believe, while the British have felt, well, the French are winning this in numbers. Which, as I've predicted, I'm just surprised how well and how even it's been. Man to man. And it's only really switched now, which is definitely 12,000 difference. This is where the numbers advantage and the massive firing line this has kicked in now. Well, I do think it's a spare position for the guns to sit. French shield width for the French units. That's created a slight issue. In the fact, that's the firing line. It's a decent wide pool, it's not too deep. I've had worse pools. Oh my god, okay, this is a proper pool. Didn't realise how much they were actually feeding into this. I suppose it's still being fed into with this. potentially overspill. Create a waterfall. More units are being pulled off. It's still just barely being a hold. It becomes the question of, will these numbers shift? But it looks like they're getting slight reinforcements, which is not good, because this was meant to be a flank. This is, I think, a slow British loss we're seeing here. I mean, if they can bring this down close to 100,000, I'll be impressed. But I think this last 50,000 has survived for a while. So I think numbers have finally kicked in. Well, I think you can see the numbers-wise they've dramatically kicked in. But kill for kill, yeah. Got the almost drown. More units are being pulled off. So this is a serious battle line. Keeps reforming, keeps dying. Which is slowing down or speeding up the game, depending on your opinion. But this line's getting wider. This is what we don't want for the British side. Is even more sheer surface area to be shot from. That's why the fuck. And more reinforcements on this side. This is surprising. Don't know why they need more. Is that just the British pushing, or kind of not really made any more distance? They are pushing slightly. But whatever's here is being whittled down by sending more and more men to reinforce this side. I mean, to get a backlog here, I think, which might get the second, might actually get some drownings. The only hope is trying slowing down the French enough not to bring full amount of people to bear, but it is. Oh god, that's grim. Is it 20 difference? I think roughly it might be. Or 13, it's 13. 13,000 difference in kills. Still leaking. I think the diff rate might have slowed slightly, to be fair. It was a bit more rapid before, that was a bit more aggressive. The fighting's turned very much mountain peaking to mountain peaking. You'd think in theory the downhill would be worse if the French musket balls would technically drop and hit them more. For shame. Moors pulling off in sections. Surprised it's lasted so long with reinforcements. But ooh, we might be getting some drowns here. Well, yeah, these guys can't really shoot. Why are they shooting for a mountain? Very wide British death front has very skinnier French front for death. I mean, this hillside seems to be the worst of it. But the British price was very heavy here. It just seems like the sheer slog is there. The British are losing a lot quicker. You can see it numbers wise now where it is really ticking. I do wonder if this side's what's killing the French the most. Just the ability to shred them more efficiently. A serious battle's foaming here. But while this valley section might survive if they get flanked, it's not going to go overly well. So this hold is kind of necessary. Ivan Moblins leaking up the side. I thought we had more units drowning, or there's been a lot of French bodies falling into this pit. Filling it up. Which might be the case. It's kind of from this gap to this gap they're now holding is I bet you for the French it'd be demoralising. You've gone up this hill, you've curved around and he's still stuck in this uphill slog. The sheer amount of firepower difference just must be mind-boggling, really. More units are still trickling in this way. Which suggests to me this is definitely the French losing this front. Kill-wise, or space-wise, or whatever you want to call it. Two free bodies stacked. Oh, yep. I was wondering where the bodies are. This is where they are. So we're seeing we zoom up, we can kind of see, yeah, they're all piling there. Well, this is a bit of an even spread. Slightly, I think there's a bit of a increase here. I don't think this side's going to win quick enough to matter about this side. I think that side's going to like outflank itself, or it's going to send more units this way. I mean, they're reflanking this way. Oh, this valley hold is well, they're on even ground now here. That's even more guns firing this way instead of down here. How's the Bud Pit doing? Not drowning people yet, I don't think. Still 21,000 difference. Still impressive hold. I'd say there's about 100,000 plus, probably difference here. Slightly. It's definitely like I said, I wanted them to get below 150 French survivors. Surviving men. Survivors, that's a good word, yes. Surviving men. So that mean, technically, double French firepower has not been as effective as it could have been. Because in theory, you've got 10... It'll be 10% when so yeah, so in theory, if the French have 130,000 men remaining, the double firepower has been roughly mathematically evened out. At bare minimum, if you take 1-for-1 losses. I think. Because I'm adding 30,000 on top of 100,000. Because that's the difference. Roughly in my mind. But it may shift dramatically. Because we are running out of units and the French are encircling. From this side. Ish. Or they're like in that. Well, not encircling, but enlining. Extending the line. Whatever there's a term for this, I don't know. The dead keep piling high, and there's more of this. This is slightly increased. And it's almost deep enough to see into. French are definitely surfing around this way more. It's not horrendous because I think more could be sent on to us firepower wise. This is slightly surviving and choking out and getting the kills it needs to, but it's also it's a lot of losses there. And it's worst of all taking more and more men from this side, which while it's plenty, it's still whatever advantage we had here numbers wise before slightly bled away bit by bit. So that is the question, will this engagement decide the battle, or will more likely this engagement decide the battle? It is painful to watch this, because not a lot's moving. A lot's moving, but a lot's not moving. Main unit-wise, we've kind of broken off to... I think if we break into 100, like I said, 130,000 is my mental aim. If we have enough time, we're probably running out of time slightly for this. So I think if we call this 130,000 a British strategic victory of man for man doing enough damage, despite the overwhelming firepower. If the French don't hit 130 casualties, they have won the tactical and won the victory, so that's my time limit rules. But we are talking about more people dying on the French side than the British have alive. Almost, I think. Because the rate they're losing them. The fact they're spiraling forward is... it's giving me like weird hope. That just suggests less is being pulled off this way, which means this side is... the French unit's pushing up. I mean, if this was a melee combat, I think it could have been very much over here quickly. The only question is, what's breaking first? Because I thought that might break first, but this is still holding. And it's pushing slightly. But it's still in its kind of hill mode. Realistically, we're gonna... yeah, have more pen pulled away. For this losing front. Because this right flank is struggling. I'm surprised it has lasted this long, saying that we lost the middle very quickly compared to this. When we're talking about the sheer amount of firepower theoretically the French should be using. So guerrilla wise it probably has been quite even Stevens. Because the gap of kills is kind of even out. We're not overly gaining a rapid amount. It is still being a French led increase, but the actual rate has slowed down again. Oh, this is what I'm kind of scared of. How much more will be pulled away from this front? So what this front finally gets through. So this is definitely going to reinforce the right side. Which is also delaying the French counter-attack. Dear God. It's currently 4:45 and I'm giving it 15 more minutes. When it hits 5, I'll call it. So, if 5,000 British troops remain and 10,000 French troops are lost, it'll be a tactical, strategic British victory in theory, but a tactical loss for them. The French have won the field of battle, but they have won the war because the smaller unit has probably done roughly equal kills to what it's lost. So I mean, a complete British wipe in theory to 130 remaining French would, in my mind, be roughly mental maths. Because you have roughly half a number advantage, so 200 to 300,000 difference, and in theory, a hole and a half has already been done. But once we start hitting 130,000, then it's like, you're losing far too many units for what you've gained. roughly. That's kind of my rough maths, which make little sense to me, to be fair. Oh, this left side. I thought the right was going to break first, but this left side might be the actual victim of it. All of these firing lines are kind of clumped up firing through this hill. The French have it, that's why. So when you talk about the French haven't crushed this hill quite yet, they're crashing it slightly, but the fact they're not up here does suggest something. Any more French reinforcements? Not really. I can see. But I think, yeah, the French have kind of, like I said, when they get up to here, this is a killing zone for them. But back here, this is kind of where they're alright. But they walk forward, they get immediately wrecked. This is where I think the French are slowly going to either kill its last 13,000, or they might reach close enough to where the British could say you've won, among the fact that 100,000 difference has been cut down so much to where, like I said, theoretically, if the French had 150, if you're talking one-on-one kills, so you have what is 200% versus 300%, 150% remains, is kind of what I'm thinking, percentage-wise. But with that 20,000 difference, would suggest it has not been one-on-one equal. It has been French taking more from the assault. For what should be double killing the British, which has only really happened later on, where it's been an increased French kill rate. But it hasn't got away too much. It's still in that round about 20,000. Yeah, well, 30,000 maybe now. It's kind of, it's like I said, it's still in that rough ballpark of. It's not got too crazy away, same difference. Because in theory, if it got to 50,000 away difference, then you're really hitting the. Ooh, there's a flank kick going on here. This is. I was wondering when they were going to try this. So this could be. What's going to get us all killed? Yeah. For some reason I feel like this is like really stalemating. Let's check on the blood pool for confirmation. I don't know if the French are dying as much as I think they should have been. I do feel like for some reason this is peak French firing angle for kills. But it seems we're being pushed back slightly. Is that because we have less reinforcements to hold it? Or the fact we've lost the side. I mean, this hill's still got the units of idiots holding here. They're pushing wide. Like I said, if they hit 30,000, oh sorry, 130,000, I'll give the British the win. Strategic win. So it's like a draw. For what is a loss in theory, so that's where I'm counteracting the number advantage. In some sense. think the French are going to win this battle area here just because of like losing men to this. In fact, that this is what's holding this entire left flank for this right flank now pushing and kind of pins at itself. And you have this gully which is... well, this is all flowing. Minutes remaining, roughly, until I declare who wins, who dies. Though I might let it go for a little bit longer so I can eke out. That's if the British die quick enough, I think, and take the French with. I mean, the fact it was 30,000 to 150,000 roughly, and it's now down to 8,000 versus 130,000, it is... we are talking 20,000 for 20,000, but it is one of them. In theory, the French should be having a higher kill rate than this, which they might be finally getting now. They've kind of gone to this flat ground now where it's not really an advantage for the British for the uphill fight. And this should just be a slaughter for fire rate. Large area here, all firing on this small section. Actually, these guys should be being absolutely shredded, but they're kind of not. They are, and they're not. More guys are coming in. Come on, pile in. More pulling off this bit, so it's very impressive. Makes an impressive firing line for the French side here. This is a definite death pincer. So we're actually going to break first the valley or top side. I think the valley might break because the top side is getting more and more need for reinforcements. More and more units are being pulled off for these thin, shaky defense lines that are definitely getting kills, but not. I did say I'll probably give the British a strategic victory if they hit 30,000, 130,000. I think I'll emit it an even-ish draw at 35. A French victory if they get wiped out before then. But it's more Pyrrhic victory than what's first intended. And if the French get lower than that, well, it's definitely a British strategic victory. It's a more agreeable one. Because like I said, technically you had 300,000 piling in slowly to 100,000 strong, with 100,000 reinforcing, like I said. The reinforcing 100,000 came in a bit earlier than expected, which kind of probably helped with the kill rate. That 300,000 was probably like 200,000 very quickly. More's being pulled off, oh god. This is a weird firing line back here, still holding. Yeah, I think the French are definitely... I don't know about the top breaking. They're still... here. Problem is the French is going to properly encircle us soon. But the terrain is not exactly too bad for the British. I mean, in the flat ground they got one, like, absolute walloped. But in this little alcove they're kind of standing in, they're kind of taking side shots, but the frontal fight is a little bit agreeable. Like I said, I think the French are going to generally win this, and like I said, I think I'll give 35,000 for a even Stevens draw, roughly. Because the British are never going to win 100,000 extra, but it's more to see how well they would lose. But that, like I said, if it's just that against greater force, which you do lose more on the assault than defence. Against a greater force, the British might have... sorry, against an equal force, the British might have won. And probably handsomely by that. Because like I said, in theory you're talking 150,000 is equal to the 200,000. And we're below that now, so... Trying to, in rough calculation talk, if it was equal. So the train does do something with the muskets. Interesting to know. I think I might as well let this carry on. I'm probably got a couple, 10 minutes scraping the barrel. I can hold on for this a little bit longer. I'm knocking everything. This should end quickish now, hopefully. Unless the French army's going to do something stupid and not exactly go in. But the fact this line is still holding is impressive. This probably, question is that the longer battle? Is this the longer battle? Because that battle, I think this battle line moves more than intended. So these guys might slowly push around the rock in theory. If they do, whew. I mean, they've got the numbers too. If the army was smarter, it would encircle. I did say this was the Valley of Death. This is probably why. It's a bit. Well, they've hit 35, 700 more, and I'll call it a draw. Because 20,000 is still a good force. Have an advantage. That's my what I'm going to claim. They've got around the rock. It is now the end, and that is an encirclement happening. The amount of French deaths is still impressive. But how clean this field battle's getting down, because there's not a lot of there's a lot of blood here. There's not a lot of blood here. That means this side's getting 3 shots off into the side. Even more is being pulled off here. Or is it just simply turning around and shooting? But this assault line has not really changed. I think you can argue it's slightly improved. It's pushed forward slightly, but it's not really advanced much further. The British have held that. And they've held it to the bitter end. The fact the French still haven't pushed this yet is actually shocking me. But as I guessed before, the French are going to win the full battle. I don't think the British are going to get to that victory. The thing where I said before the correct number of deaths were technically the deaths of one more than they've lost. But it's getting close to a man for man, 10% extra survivors for the French army in theory. It's not brilliant. So you're talking, what is it? Roughly, it's 111%. Not 100. Well, 100,000, 1100. No, I'm trying to use 2 percentages for 2 different equal numbers. So it's basically saying 60 odd percent. No, it'd be 40%, wouldn't it? Because it's under half. So yeah, so it's saying 40%. So yeah, sorry, backwards now. 60% casualty rate for the French army is not brilliant. Saying you had half of their force advantage on top of your own amount. So you had 150% advantage numbers wise for 6% casualties. 60% casualties. Or is it just 50% advantage? Technicalities. I think this is eking trying to last as long as I can, but please end quickly. I'm running slightly low on time here, and lower than I wanted to go. I do think this is a tie in the sense that it's not quite a British victory, like I said. It isn't. Anything after 50%, after 150,000 is impressive and an up, but I think this is probably even Stevens in the sense where increased numbers have won the field battle, but strategically the losses are evenish for the numbers and the effectiveness. There's a 4,000 troop range of meh. Are they pushing gear? They're still not pushing gear. This firing line is still, despite all the bodies piling up. I think it is time to admit that this is what's a British loss. I'm running out of time, so I'm trying to speed this up. Let's reveal where some of these bodies were laying. So yeah, that is ignoring the absolute pile of French flying bodies. This is where all the bodies were sitting for the French, which, as I realised, it got impressively high in places. So yeah, that's that. Hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, so it is a draw, I would argue, for military-wise, actual battles French victory.